Welcome to Elite Hockey Science. My name is Ron Johnson. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. This course introduction is on language and skating, so more specifically, the language associated with skating. What is the importance of language? Language provides clarity. It's very important that our language is concise and that a student knows exactly what we're saying by the language that we use to explain certain principles. We need to be able to translate what we know as teachers to the students simply and effectively so as to achieve the best results. This way, there's no confusion about what the student thinks they know and what they are supposed to know. More important than the quest for certainty is the quest for clarity. Once a specific word has been identified, the concept explained, the student will have a basic understanding of its application. The trick then is to turn words into action. Let's look at some words. Skating, and more importantly, the two basic foundations of skating, which is forward and backward, has its own language. And what we want to do is to take the language of skating purely from a functional standpoint. And when we're looking at forward skating and backward skating, we can break this down into simple skills that we recognize, and these would be the starting, striding, stopping, gliding, turning, and pivoting fundamentals, and of course these would be associated with both forward and backward skating. Based on one's knowledge of the game, breaking these terms down even further would not be a difficult task. Let's take turning for example. While some of the language associated with turning may be familiar, others will not. The result being that they will be left out of the developmental process. Again, taking forward turning, we're looking at the gliding turn, tight turn, the 360 turn, pivot turn, and the crossover turn. Again, you may think of a couple others, but the ones shown above are the most standard ones that often come to mind. There are in fact many other kinds of turns. We have the slide skid turn, the stop or open hip turn, the punch turn, the spin turn, the inside edge turn, the cut turn, heel break turn, the mohawk turn, the split leg turn, single leg turn, and the jam turn. And the single leg turn is most often used on the wraparound or even on a slap shot fake. And the skate turn on the wall is really what the jam turn is. So we're under tight pressure. We have to pivot quickly or rotate quickly on the wall and use our skates to pick up the puck. We need to reorganize even these headings into more precise categories. Where the common hierarchical structure was represented by the following model, again looking at forward skating, we can break this down even further into the following heading, which is the turning. We have gliding, tight turn, 360 turn, the crossover turn, and the pivot turn. And now from here, we're going to break this down even further. So the tight turn skills are the slide skid turn, open hip turn, the punch turn, the spin turn, the mohawk turn, the heel cut turn, and the jam turn. The previous slides provide a basic view of the hierarchical skating model. However, this does not provide the tactical applications that these skating skills could be used in. This changes the language dramatically and therefore changes how we both look at and then develop these skills. We need to look at skating not only in the skill sense but in the tactical sense as well. Skating itself should in fact be represented by the following model: speed, power, quickness, agility, mobility, deception, explosiveness, deceleration, evasion, and economy. So these are tactical headings. So we would use speed in the tactical sense, we could use power in a tactical sense, we could use deception in a tactical sense. These would be broken down further as demonstrated below. So let's just take speed for example. We have forward speed and we have backward speed. And under forward we have speed associated with striding, gliding, turning, and pivoting. When we look at just power, for example, the hierarchy can change to represent the following model. So under power, we have stride, crossover power, net drive power, agility power, and battle for positioning, which again is power, and it's through leg extension positioning, so using our edges and pushing through players or driving off of players. These can be further broken down as follows. So we take stride, and we can break that down into the following model. So we have a long game stride, transition stride, sprint stride, and a defensive stride. And when we look at the cruise stride, there is no power demonstrated in this, however. all skating constructs must be broken down into subcategories as well for clarity. So we take quickness, we can break this down. We have quick starts, quick stops, quick pivots, quick turns, and quick direction changes. Breaking this down further, of course, we have turns. We have the crossover turn, we have tight turns, counter turns, and we have mohawk turns. The primary objective of establishing a very simple hockey language is that players can clearly understand each technique and its subsequent application. Once a player understands the tactical application, we can then move them into drills and mimic game-like situations following a step-by-step plan. So skating skill, we have the tactical comprehension, so moving the skating skills into the tactical realm. We break this further into speed or how, situation what, location where, so it could be the corner of the rink, down the sidewall, zone entry, timing as to when, it could be the outcome as to why, so why are we performing that specific skill in that situation. The situation would break itself down into obviously the even strength, man advantage, and man disadvantage situations. In essence, we are building a very specific hockey language for teaching. If a teacher was to ask a student to perform an explosive lateral left side start into a forward glide and explosive lateral cut, he or she should be able to do so correctly as defined by the language. As was previously stated, it's all about language. All of the aforementioned skills come from the same mechanical fundamentals. Skating, or more specifically locomotion, is based on the basic principles of fall and catch. Falling is the transfer of one's weight so as to maintain momentum. So when I transfer my weight, if I open my edges, I move forward, I start to gain forward momentum or even backward momentum, or I can go laterally if I like. Catching is either the positioning of one's feet such that momentum is slowed or increased. Conceptually, this is accomplished by several basic fundamentals. The 7 foundation principles of skating are: balance, edge control, and of course edges are both inside-outside edges, the toe edge, the heel edge, and the mid-blade edges as well. We have foot position, recovery action, we have extension, compensation, and we have transfer of weight. So where do we start? I see 2 choices or methods, if you will. So using this mechanical model, we can do it the hard way or the smart way. This means that we will need to break down things into manageable chunks. And we know that all tactics are made of skills. We know that skills are made up of smaller parts called microskill elements, or MSEs. And I liken this to the same analogy of using letters to words. So for example, the letter would represent the microskill and the word would represent the skill itself. And we could look at tactics as actually being the sentence structure that the words are used in. It's really about understanding the player and the situation that he or she wants to perform or compete in. We must then do our homework. So we have diagnosis. We have to then put a plan into place, and that's called a prescription. So after we do the diagnosis, we understand the player's weaknesses or even strengths, and then we put a plan into effect. Which brings us to the teaching paradox. Is your teaching subjective or objective? So do we have an idea or is it based on fact? So actually it's called fact or fiction. And in summary, we have skill, so we have our player's strengths and we have their weaknesses, and we must understand both. So we must assess both. And how we do this is through diagnosis. So we understand the goal of the player, of course, and then we understand that there's different results. So the goal are the results that the player, as a result that the player is getting, does that match the results or the goal that the player has to achieve? This is going to require an in-depth assessment of the player's skills and game play. So we need to correlate his or her personal goals with real results. Does the player need more speed or power or deception, for example? Once this has been determined, we need to mechanically evaluate the skills we're trying to develop. So there are a lot of skating skills to evaluate, and for the following example, we'll use the forward swing skating crossover with the puck. So there are 7 different styles of crossovers. We have the linear crossover, the long game crossover, the short game crossover, a lateral crossover start, for example. We have an agility crossover. And we're just trying to understand that there's a language that we need to associate with even the skating crossover. So looking at this example where we're using a puck, we have language that describes body alignment. We also have language that describes the shoulder alignment. And these are all mechanical principles. So we break down the hip rotation of the skating leg. We have to understand that the hip extension of the skating leg, the knee extension of the skating leg, the ankle extension of the skating leg. We also have to work on the adduction of the skating leg. We work on the hip flexion of the gliding leg. We have to understand that the knee flexion of the gliding leg as well as the ankle flexion of the gliding leg are critical elements that we have to focus on developing. Trunk rotation, we have top hand grip dynamics, we have bottom hand grip dynamics, we also have the width of hands we have to take into consideration, and this mechanical element really influences the knee action and recovery. And we also have to take into consideration the puck position. So again, we have questions that need to be answered, and when we look at all of those skill elements, we do an assessment, we create a chart. So 100% being the best possible mechanical execution, and obviously, 0 being the worst. And so we're going to look at all of these skills. I'm going to plot them on a graph. So we're just using this as a hypothetical example of a player. And we break this all down. And what this allows us to do is to take a look at their overall performance, and now we can start to see that there's weaknesses in certain areas. For example, we have C, F, G, I, J, and N are the weakest elements that we have to take into consideration. Now that we have weaknesses identified, we can put together the prescription. In order to do this, we must take the weakest microskill elements, again using this the graph as we were doing earlier. So we plot these all out on the graph, and we can see now that we have these certain elements. And what we need to do after this is to separate them into upper and lower body skills. So again, looking at the green, these are lower body skills. We have hip rotation, ankle extension, adduction, knee flexion, ankle flexion. And now we add the trunk and the width of hands. So those are some of the things that we'd have to fix. To implement a plan for correcting them can be either done on or off the ice. It is important to establish a very clear expectation between you, the teacher, and your student. We can now move forward, isolating the correct skill to fit the task or tactic. So in summary, we must use language that is user-friendly and comprehensive. 2, we must use language to bridge the mechanics or skill and the tactic where it would be applied. 3, we must assess each player according to their own strengths and weaknesses. And this is a common thing that I see on YouTube or the internet, where we look constantly at skills that other teachers or people demonstrate, but what we have is our own weaknesses that must be assessed. So while those things help us, we don't just take a pill to cure what we think is a problem. We need to look and address exactly what our own problem or the player's problem is. So their developmental program must again meet the needs of the level that they aspire to. So each level as we go up requires more stringent qualifications. They have to be more exact, more precise in their execution. You have completed this presentation. Please have the athlete complete the appropriate assessment, consult the appropriate skating construct, presentation, and start with level 101 of that course. Thank you very much for watching.